Hi everyone. I'm here with Camille van Gestel from the WakaWaka Foundation. And today we are going to do a startup series about how WakaWaka has made its impact and how Camille and his team has started this social venture. It's a purpose-driven company, and we are very curious to hear more about how Camille set this up. So welcome, Camille, to the first of the startup series on a video chat on a remote channel.
Excellent, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here and honored to be the first one.
Yes, we are very curious about how you started with such a purpose-driven company. Maybe you can tell a little bit about how you started and what the company is actually about.
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, there's indeed a WakaWaka Foundation, which is a non-profit entity. But apart from that, there's also a social enterprise, which is called WakaWaka Europe. And now you're talking directly to WakaWaka Europe, actually. But we work closely together, obviously, with the WakaWaka Foundation, also for our impact projects. So there's the two different entities. But what is it that we do? WakaWaka means shine bright in Swahili. And that is actually what we try to bring to people around the world who are not connected to the electricity grid. There's more than 1 billion people who live off-grid and they depend for their light on dangerous, toxic kerosene lamps and candles. More than 1 billion people who do not have the luxury of a light switch. And this is the purpose, basically, why we started WakaWaka in the first place, to provide light to 1 billion people. Obviously, that is nearly impossible, but fortunately, we're not alone. There are dozens and dozens of other companies that are trying to accomplish the same goal, if you will. So we're not alone. And fortunately, that's the case because it's a very challenging goal, actually, to pursue. But I'm glad to say that in the past few years, we've been able to reach 1.5 million people with a solar-powered solution. That is what we make. We make solar-powered lights and phone chargers to provide light in the evening so people can do their homework, cook dinner in the evening, do chores, also be more productive, actually. It's basically a life changer for somebody who's actually living in utter darkness when the sun sets. And I can say it's very rewarding, and I'm very proud that I'm still able to do this. Yeah, so that is WakaWaka in a nutshell, actually.
Yeah, so to start something like this, how did you start with this? You have this problem, but how did you get towards solving this problem?
Well, that's a good question. I hope you don't mind, by the way, that I'm walking on the street. I prefer to walk when I talk.
That's great.
The proverbial walk the talk.
Yeah.
But no, I've always wanted to do something with my life which would make sense and which would make impact. So that one day when you look back, you can say that it all made sense and that you were able to also make a positive impact in the lives of others. So that has always been an ambition and a dream. But it wasn't until 2010, during the World Cup in South Africa, that my co-founder, Maurice Groen, which translates to green by chance, and me, we were in South Africa for the World Cup soccer to design a project to offset the entire carbon emission of the World Cup soccer with LED lights. Great project. We actually won a competition, basically, that was issued on our own idea, by the way, but that's besides the point. We were traveling in South Africa and we actually saw that the people who really needed light the most were not eligible for our project because you needed to be connected to the grid. Yeah. So that is where an idea actually came about, to try and find a solution for people who do not have access to electricity. But we looked at each other and we said, well, whatever we do, we're not going to start an LED lighting company because that's way too complex. And how does that work? And well, less than a year later, that's precisely what we did. With proprietary software from a company in the Netherlands, which actually made the WakaWaka highly efficient. And still today, the most efficient solar powered and light in the world, actually.
Wow.
So we started this company with the purpose to provide light to 1 billion people. However, when we said that, we had no idea of the profound impact that light has on people's lives. We only found out later that when students, for example, when they can switch from kerosene lamps to solar lamps, their school results increase dramatically. From pass rates jump from a mere 50% to 100% within a year.
You're listening to the wind now.
Can you still hear me? I'm walking in Workum, which is a very historic little town in Friesland, in the north of Holland. So you see some historic backgrounds in the back, and well, there comes a little bit of wind with it. So I hope you don't mind. If it's a problem, I'll go back and we'll take it on the side.
Well, that's okay. Let's see if we find a less windy spot to better hear you. What I noticed is that you made an impact on which you didn't really realize that you could make an impact on the study results. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So the reason we started the company was to try and prevent the carbon emissions from these kerosene lamps, because these carbon emissions are responsible for more than 50% of the global emissions for household lighting. Imagine that. So 1 billion people living in rural areas with just a small candle or a kerosene lamp emit more carbon than the rest of the world, with on average 40 light points at home. That is why we started the company. But to have light when normally you don't have it, it's hard to imagine, basically, if you have the luxury of a light switch always. So it really wasn't until we got started that we found out about what the impact of light really is. And it started with school results, but it also applies to disposable income levels. When people have light in the evening, they can extend their day with 2 or 3 hours. It means they can be more productive. They can work longer in the field because they can do their chores and their dinners in the dark with light at home instead of having to do this by daylight. So we've seen families see their disposable income increase with 40 to 50%, simply because they had a small light in the evening. So I don't know what you make in a month, Nick. I don't have to know, but I can imagine if you would make 40, 50% more, you'd be quite happy.
Yes, you definitely are. So they started working over hours because of your lightning.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So people are going to bed a little bit later, several hours later. Well, you can imagine what people do when they have to go to bed early, when it's dark. I mean, what do? You cuddle up and you make children. I mean, that's one of the things that happens also. Yeah. So we don't have a lot of data on this yet, but I think it's safe to say that light is also a birth control device, and I would say this is Vatican proof.
Yes, but that's like a lot of side impact. You never thought of this, and now you see the results.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
So how do you actually get to these regions? Because if there are no electricity grids, you probably don't have internet connections as well.
No, that's true. So unlike other companies, we did not start up basically our own gigantic sales force. We work with NGOs who are already in these areas. They're active there already. They work with schools, they work with local communities. They are the experts on the ground. And they also know where light is needed most. So we work with a lot of different NGOs, from Care International, Save the Children, Habitat for Humanity, the Red Cross, UNHCR. There's so many that we work with. And they help us distribute the lights to areas where it's absolutely needed.
Okay, so everyone that you started with a crowdfunding, if you buy one, you give one. Everyone that was giving one, you would provide that to these NGOs to distribute them locally.
Absolutely, and we did that usually in disaster areas. So, for example, when Typhoon Haiyan, basically destroyed areas in the Philippines, we were there within 24 hours actually with the first WakaWakas, and in the end, in a few months' time, we were able to help over 100,000 people who survived the typhoon and had to live in shelters. We did the same in Nepal after the earthquake. We were there when Ebola struck in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and there are so many other examples. More recently, it was Hurricane Idai in East Africa. We sent thousands of lights there, also thanks to the help of partners.
Yes.
That were distributed by Habitat, by other local NGOs, and by Save the Children also.
Was that also a reason to start a foundation, or did it start as a foundation first?
No, that was definitely a reason to start a foundation, because we've noticed that despite of our model, where we provide light to somebody for every product that we sell, apart from that model, we found that there was also actually a need and a demand from companies to do more. But tax-deductible donations are a little bit difficult when you have a for-profit company.
Yeah.
And for that purpose, there is a non-profit entity to receive basically these tax-deductible donations, and also to help allocate lights to these NGOs.
Yeah, and if I go back to the start of your conversation, you mentioned that you didn't want to set up a lighting company. I'm curious, what skills did you have to start this company?
Yeah, I often wonder what skills I have, period. But no, I certainly was not an LED lighting designer or expert. And actually, there were quite a lot of companies that were being specialized in LED lighting. And it's quite a technique. So you need to work with experts in the field in order to be able to make a decent product, let alone the best product. So we decided to look for engineers who really understand this matter very well, and they helped us design the WakaWaka up to the standards that we thought were necessary. We wanted to provide the best the West has to offer for people who live in off-grid areas, because once people understand and know that there are smartphones or iPhones or something like this, people would like to have this, but they can't afford it. So we wanted to create the iPhone of solar lamps, basically.
Yes,
And
the inability to afford this product. How did you tackle that?
how people can afford this? Well, there's also some lessons to be learned there, because we tried also to implement a sort of pay-as-you-go model, which is a microfinance model, where people could pay off a light, which obviously was being offered at a reduced price already, not the same price as here in Europe. And they would buy scratch cards for 75 cents a week, and then they would have light for the entire week. But to operate a project like that and a model like that is really challenging. A lot of our fellow lighting companies have found out by themselves also how challenging this is. Some of them haven't survived. Well, obviously there's a part of the story which we need to touch upon later on, I think. But we decided to stop with the microfinance project because we couldn't turn a profit, basically. It was too challenging.
Wow, so you stopped this after how many times of trying?
After 4 years.
After 4 years?
After 4 years, we had to stop it. So that was really unfortunate, because I still believe that it's possible, but you run into issues also with execution that's hard to control over a distance. We started our own office in Rwanda. We had a staff of at some point maybe even 30 people in Rwanda. But the devil is in the detail. If the operational let's say cells, if they don't turn a profit, it becomes very hard basically to make the entire entity profitable. And that's where we had to decide to pull the plug at some point.
To pull the plug of the foundation, or pull the plug of WakaWaka?
No, just that entity, just that entity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had different entities in different locations.
Yeah, we had an office in Rwanda. We had an office in the US also, where we started to work on the US market, which is a completely different market than the European one. Every different retailer we talked to had a different kind of certification that they wanted. It wasn't easy to enter the US market. So I think, we've been successful there up to a certain degree, up to a certain point.
Yeah.
But we had to decide recently also to focus on our home market first and the markets around us, and really start building from there again.
Okay, well, because I'm actually a shareholder in the WakaWaka Foundation, I guess. I've been crowdfunding it, the first WakaWaka. After that, I've been like offering or spending like €500 in it to buy one of the shares. You tried a lot of different financing models, right?
We did. We did a lot of different crowdfunding, and I know that you are one of our agents of light, Nick. I'm aware. So once again, I want to thank you for that support, because when you did it, it was really, really helpful to get us to the next stage.
Yeah, well, the stage, right? Something with production.
Yes. Yeah. No. Of course, we've developed quite a lot of products which requires capital, and that was one of the reasons for us to raise money. Also, to make sure we had enough working capital to finance our productions. Yeah. So you really helped us through difficult phases which we had in the past. But
yeah, I love to help. I love to help social enterprises, and this was also affordable for me. So as an individual, you could help out. And that was great, because I never saw that with enterprises. Normally, you have you start with €5,000 to be able to contribute.
Yeah.
Those are low perks that everyone could help, actually.
No, yeah, that's I think we did about 10 crowdfunding campaigns altogether. So I think over the years we raised $3.5 million in crowdfunding, which really helped build a foundation for WakaWaka. Unfortunately, as you know, that foundation wasn't strong enough. So one of the latest, let's say, investment rounds that we did just before the summer of 2018, that round failed. Unfortunately, wow. And that was something that we could not afford, and we were basically out of financial runway, as it's called, immediately. So we had to discuss with our shareholders and ask them whether we could declare bankruptcy on WakaWaka. It was the most difficult decision I've had to make ever in my life, and I don't recommend anybody to try and do the same. I mean, I hope this can be spared for anybody who has their own company. It was a really difficult decision because we didn't know what was going to happen. So then a curator comes in, basically a liquidator. He sees if there's anything to salvage, whether there's a brand to be sold or inventory. In our case, that was the case. There was a brand, there was sales, there was inventory, there was intellectual property. So the company had a value.
Yes.
And we were also very fortunate to see that dozens of companies and investors were interested to take over the company. But there was also a danger there, because who is going to take over a bankrupt company but with a mission? We started this company for a reason. We don't want WakaWaka to be slammed on just any commercial product without the impact component that we had in mind. So I think we are extremely fortunate that in the end, an investor won the bid who really understood the mission, who really understands the brand and what it stands for, and also how important crowdfunders like you have been and are for the mission. So I believe that, I think it was last week even, you received a message that finally we're able to give back your shares that you lost in the bankruptcy,
Oh,
we're
wow.
able to give them back in the new entity,
Oh, wow.
free of,
That's amazing.
free of
I
charge.
didn't even see that email because I was in Shanghai and I couldn't access my mail.
Check your mail, Nick.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And it's
Yeah,
not about a big amount. It's a very small amount, though.
it doesn't matter.
It's really, really nice that you've been able to, out of a bankruptcy, set this up again to be able to pay back those who've been crowdfunding you. How did you
I
do
have
that?
I've never seen it before. I don't know of any other example of a bankrupt company that decides to give back shares to crowdfunders. Usually that's, a lame excuse to get rid of crowdfunders, which require attention and talk to you and ask questions and all of this.
Yeah.
And when you go bankrupt, a new investor would say, thank goodness we're done with that. Not this one. He understood that part of the brand integrity is closely connected to our crowd, the people who have helped build the brand, who have helped us generate so much impact. And so in that whole, let's say, restart phase, we had some good discussions with him, and we were able to convince him also that this was really necessary, that this needed to happen. So although he said yes enthusiastically,
Yeah.
it has taken well over a year to really make this happen.
You need a lot
From
of to do so, right?
from a legal perspective, it really wasn't easy to just give back shares to people because the Dutch tax authority might think it should be taxed for some reason.
Wow.
So no, we've had quite some lengthy discussions, but in the end we found a way to do this without too many implications. So, but it has taken a lot of time and also a lot of money from lawyers even to really help pull this off. But I'm really happy that now it finally has happened.
Yeah, that's remarkable, and I'm really curious about how does this work, this bankruptcy, and how do you say goodbye to all the teams that are working in all these different countries because they have to stop out of a sudden, the human aspect. How does it go?
That is one of the hardest parts, I think. We had a team of 17 people before the bankruptcy. And even though the new shareholder, the new owner, offered almost everybody a new job, it wasn't always the exact job they had before. Obviously, a new investor has a different view of people's capacities, of people's opportunities, of people's career paths than we had. So unfortunately, that made a lot of people leave. They didn't know what to expect from a new shareholder, probably.
Yeah.
So that was difficult.
But wow, right? How much time goes that bankruptcy takes a while? How much time do people have to wait for getting back in the company?
Well, that was actually rather quick. So I think it was within a month or 6 weeks or so.
Wow.
When people were offered a new job in a new company, basically. But it was an equal amount of time for us basically to lose the majority of the team, basically. So that was that wasn't easy, basically. So you have to start from scratch, basically, again.
Yes, and how are you doing? After all of this, this roller coaster.
I'm still standing. I'm still breathing. Still smiling, even.
You still have the same role?
Sorry?
You still have the same role?
No. Well, yes and no. So my main role was I was responsible for business development, basically creating impact projects together with customers. I'm still doing that, but apart from that, I'm now also involved with production, logistics, marketing. So there's a lot of things that I took on extra on my plate, basically, which is what you do if there's fewer people.
Yeah, you lose your team that normally does this, right?
Exactly. So, a day has 24 hours. So there were a few hours left. So I figured I'd utilize these.
Yeah, and I wonder also, like, you have so much different cultures that you work with. You set up entities in other countries. They're totally different people to manage. How do you grow that team, and how is it going now after the new company owner is there?
Well, that has been really difficult to create a sort of company culture over the continent. And with all the challenges that we've faced over the years, I don't think that we've really been able to do that as we would have liked to. And currently at the moment, we're working with a small team basically from the Netherlands. So we don't have the US and the Rwanda entity right now, which makes things also a lot easier, and it simplifies things. So actually, it's kind of refreshing to have more focus, and actually to help rebuild the company again from where we were. And I have to say, we're making really great steps. Giving back shares is just one of them, but it's actually about generating impact. And I'm really proud and happy that last month we started the distribution of 90,000 study lights in Rwanda, Sudan, and Ethiopia, thanks to a contribution also from the postcode lottery in the Netherlands.
Wow! Is
and
it
what
foundation, Doen Foundation, or?
No. This is a postcode lottery directly. So what they've done, they purchase lights from us, but obviously we have an impact component connected to every light. So for every Power Plus they bought from us, we said, well, then you need to donate 3 study lights to Rwanda, Sudan, Ethiopia. And they said yes. So as a result, we can now donate 90,000 study lights to several hundred schools in these 3 countries. And what will happen is we will donate the lights to the schools. The schools will keep ownership of the light, and they will lend the lights, just like books, to their students, like a library.
Oh wow!
So
different
channel. We call this a solar library. And the reason we're doing this, and the reason we're not donating directly to end users, is because we do not want to disrupt the market. If we were to do that, then the neighbor would think, who may not have received the light, solar is for free. Why don't I wait for the next millionaire to stop by and give me a light free of charge? So that is what we don't want. We want to stimulate markets. Yeah. And by getting the first milliamps into a household, people realize what the impact of light is. And that's when they actually start saving for a solution of their own. And at the end of the year, they have to return the study light to the school for the next cohort.
Oh, wow.
That's the solar library.
So there are some different models that were successful that you saw, and then you thought like, okay, maybe I can use that for this purpose as well?
To be honest, yes, because this model has been tested before by a UK NGO called Solar8. They tested this about 5 years ago in West Africa with money also from the World Bank. And the results were staggering. They saw the uptake of solar-powered products in areas where people supposedly didn't have any disposable income. They saw the uptake of solar products increase with 30 to 40%. And that's amazing, because these areas were basically neglected by the industry because people were supposedly too poor, but they weren't, after they realized how impactful light really is. And this is what we are trying to accomplish now also at scale with this pilot project with the postcode lottery.
Yeah, so directly selling solar lights in such countries is very hard, but giving them like a tryout, like a Netflix model, giving them a year or 2 years or 3 years of tryout, will give them like the understanding that this is a necessary product for them to keep having.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Or a similar product, basically.
I know a Dutch startup that does this with Eportfolio inside universities. He offers this Eportfolio platform where students can send in their work, and they now granted access to businesses to actually scout students for internships and jobs. And they have the same model, I guess. Once you're done studying, you can pay for yourself instead of the study paying for access to the platform. So it's like
Interesting. Yeah.
an advanced like LinkedIn model within the school, where you can keep access to your online portfolio and use it for different reasons, for your business networking. So it's
Interesting models.
yeah. I wonder one more thing, like if you look at the different like business cultures, if you go deeper into, for example, the US culture or the African culture, can you tell us a little bit about those differences for other social entrepreneurs that want to help people in emerging markets?
Well, the US or emerging markets is quite a difference.
Yeah.
Well, the challenge for WakaWaka has been is that we have a product that we are selling in Western countries, as well as in off-grid countries. Let's say the global South. Those are two absolutely different markets. I'm going to sit down for a second.
Yeah.
Those are two absolutely different markets. For example, in the US, yeah, it's a gigantic market. But actually it requires a lot of marketing efforts to get your brand out, and that's really, really expensive. So before going to the US, really consider whether you have the capital actually to back any efforts that you are successful in actually. So it becomes a problem actually when you're successful. So when you get into retail stores, that is when you have to start communicating, but that comes at a cost unless you're able to generate free publicity on a massive scale. And we were able to do that to a certain extent, but not to the scale where we had to do that. Yeah, and
so you're doing something good for society, it was very hard to get free publicity.
No, it wasn't. No. It wasn't hard to get free publicity, but the amount of publicity that you need in order to get a brand established, you need to advertise a lot. Brands invest hundreds of millions in basically building a brand.
Like a shotgun approach, like Uber is using and Airbnb, like getting investment all the time just for marketing reasons.
Yeah, but yeah, you have to turn a profit at some point. So yeah, that's quite challenging. I mean, I don't know when they are going to turn a profit, but I mean, we're seeing problems with WeWork now also. Great model. They've raised a lot of capital, but it's a bubble, unfortunately. So you don't want to create a bubble. There must be substance behind it. It has to be backed by sales and actual profits. That is way more healthy.
You think that those big startups, they won't survive anymore?
Well, no, I wouldn't say it that way. I'm just saying it would probably be a lot more healthier if the business model that's behind it is actually profitable on a shorter notice than a lot of the timelines that these tech startups have in mind.
Yes, but like they're like trying to build a habit out of their products, right? So Netflix is doing that, Uber is doing that. Everywhere you go, you should try to use Uber. Everywhere you go, you should try to use Airbnb, so that you don't think about getting a hotel anymore, or you don't think about getting a traditional taxi anymore. But that's the first, that you are the first thing on the mind, that you're using their services. Is that something that you also see like now in your business model, that you are doing it via teachers, and that they have a 4-year tryout, and then they will have the habit of using this?
I like the fact that you're thinking along, Nick. I can see you're an investor in WakaWaka. No, but it's no. But it's for hardware companies. It's more difficult than software companies. So tech companies have it's a bit, well, nothing is easy, but let's say it's harder for a hardware company to scale and to keep up a certain scale than it is for a tech company. So in our case, we need to add additional retailers. Retailers expect to see new products every half year.
Yeah.
You need to advertise in these stores. This all comes at a cost. And if you're unable to do that, your products stop selling, and then basically you lose your retailer and you can start all over again. So it's a different model.
Yeah, you think like look at traditional businesses, they were all based on selling products, but they had to scale up, like the organization, they had to scale up like a family business. They scale up to a country, they emerge in that country, you scale up, but it's a very long-term proposition, and yeah, you have to do it R&D at the same time, because then the new market, they could use the old products, but the old market needs a new product already.
Yeah.
Within mobile phones, you see that Fairphone is having a hard time doing so. But do you see that also with Lightning? Because yeah, we still use the same lights. I'm using Philips Hue lights maybe for 10 years. I just got them for 1 or 2 years, but I think I'm going to use them for 10 years.
Yeah. Now that's one thing. So the let's say the product life cycle of WakaWaka is pretty long. We build it to last also.
Yeah.
Which is great from a sustainable point of view, but from a replacement point of view, there's other companies who have different models. But I think in our case, what we need to do, if we want to play in a retail environment, we have to keep innovating. On the other hand, if we start to focus more on impact projects and doing impact projects together with businesses, that's quite different. Because then we can work with our portfolio a lot longer. So we have a longer life cycle on our portfolio if we choose to focus on different markets. And that's what we're heading for.
So the product as a service model, where you say you're offering lights, a certain hour amount of light to a company?
No, that is what we tried also on a consumer level in Rwanda. Product light as a service, basically, LAS, if you will. But that, like I said before, that is very, very challenging. I still believe in that model, but it's also only eligible for people who can actually afford it, which is just half the market, basically. So the other half, they also don't have 50 cents or 75 cents per week to spare on renewable energy. So that's why we're looking for other solutions to try and reach this this target group also. For example, with our solar libraries. And I really believe that is a model that will prove itself, has proven itself already, and I hope to see a lot more of it.
Yeah. So is it also a difference between different countries? Because we are quite used to have subscription models, but I don't know if there's any companies in Rwanda that have these kind of models in place.
Oh yes, there's so many. No, there's a lot of companies who are doing that, subscription models. It's called in let's say solar language, it's called pay as you go solar. So people have a box in their home and they pay either well, not credit cards, but through their mobile phone or a bank account if they have it. They pay a weekly fee and that turns on the box basically. There are other models also in Bangladesh where people share a microgrid basically with their individual solar panels on their roof. They connect them to the neighbors, and then basically they share the energy that they generate, and they can basically say, well, I need a little bit more light this evening. I have enough for today. I'll share it with the rest or sell it to my neighbor. And they can actually connect these small microgrids with other microgrids to make a larger grid. I think there is a lot of future in that, really.
That's like more advanced than we have, right?
Exactly.
So we can learn from them how they are used to the sharing economy model.
Exactly, yeah.
We cannot connect grids yet. We are not allowed to connect grids. Yeah. We are not allowed to give our solar energy to our neighbor.
But if there is no grid available, then this allows these economies to leapfrog into the next phase right away, as they have done with mobile phones.
So they are probably going to be more advanced in everything, in like the sharing economy, in the next 5 years. They are going to be teaching us how to do it.
Everything is a big word, but I think we can learn a lot from models that are basically starting in these developing areas, in these emerging markets. We can learn a lot from it. And because we are so far advanced here already with our grid and with other infrastructure, it's a bit more difficult for us to change. It's more expensive, and there's a lot more to it. So, but on the other hand, we have the financial means to do it. So we should.
Yeah, we definitely should, because the earth is ending and we are using products in the product life cycle of a few years, because the companies are selling mobile phones that last for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we don't quit that consumption model, we probably have lasting resources we will deplete our whole planet if we keep on continuing it. So the basic of selling a product that has 10 years of life cycle that you are offering, might be not the best thing to invest in as an investor. But in terms of impact, that's so important to make a product that lasts long. That's not an IKEA product, like a life cycle of a year or 3 months. You want to replace your chairs, replace your stuff, and then have a lot of waste streams.
And that's why you're an impact investor.
I like to think ahead, but it's very hard for social entrepreneurs to start something, right? There's not a lot of investors in that space that are believing in impact over money.
No, that's not entirely true. I think there's a lot of investors actually who are really interested in this space. Actually, our own shareholders, obviously they don't want to lose money, but they're not primarily interested in high returns. I mean, if in the end they're able to retrieve their money, then that's fine. So we are not under pressure to pay dividends at the end of the year.
You're not in that rat race of the
we're not in that rat race. No, we are rather in another rat race, which is to help generate as much impact as possible. That is what really satisfies our shareholders.
But they all have a big heart, right? They are like me. They are also individuals, or they are also big corporates that are investing a lot. What kind of investor is that?
Nick, there's more people like you. Definitely. You're not alone. You're not alone.
Are these also funds, like investment funds?
No, these are individuals. These are private individuals. Yeah.
There you go.
So
that's the secret, right? You have to start with crowdfunding.
I think so. So, I wouldn't qualify this as crowdfunding, but they are part of our crowd anyway. Yes.
Can you define it as an angel investor? How do you define these?
Yeah, you could say that. You could definitely say that. I mean, they are our angels, but we have big angels and smaller angels. So it's a big band of angels.
Yes.
No, we are very, very fortunate to have found these investors, and to be honest, we have also looked for these type of investors also after the relaunch of the company. To find people who understand why it is what we're doing, and who are more interested in the social return than per se the financial return.
So I'm coaching a lot of startups, but it's always hard to suggest them like what kind of investors they have to seek for, because I don't know many of these investors. Maybe you can give them some final tips in this like final 2 minutes of this podcast video call interview. Can you still hear me, Camille? So we lost the connection for a sec, but welcome back, Camille.
Nick, I'm sorry about that. The unthinkable happened. I forgot to bring my WakaWaka when I was leaving. So my apologies for that.
Oh, now you got some energy again. Your phone dropped down.
Yeah. So hopefully the sound is a little bit better now that I'm indoors.
Yeah, you're giving us a tour in your house now, in your office.
Well, yeah, this is my house. We bought a new house recently, so welcome to my kitchen.
Awesome.
Great. And a little Christmas tree here.
Yeah, it's almost Christmas, huh?
It is.
Celebrate it with your family?
Yes. We'll be celebrating soon.
Yeah, so like one of my final questions for you is like, do you have some tips for social entrepreneurs to set up like a successful, sustainable business model? As we discussed, the financing might be not traditionally financed. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you can start this?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing when you are about to launch a startup is to really think to yourself, is this really what I want? Because in all honesty, 90% of all startups fail. And they don't teach you that in business school or anywhere else, how to deal with that. And it also can be good to consider a potential failure. I mean, you don't want to think about it too much, but you want to give it some thought. Consider a potential failure also when you start up your company. For example, if you're building up intellectual property rights or a brand or anything else, to actually put that in a different entity which is not connected to your main operational entity. That's one example. Your operational entity may go bankrupt if you fail for whatever reason. It might not even be your own fault. Well, it usually is, but it doesn't have to be. So when you go bankrupt, then you still have your built-up intellectual property rights or your certifications or whatever you want to call it. You have that safeguarded in a different entity. So that would be a piece of advice. And other than that, really try to start small. If you think big, of course, dream big. Because if you don't do that, then what's the purpose, basically? Yes.
Searching for answers.
Yes. But start small and make sure that the business model that you have, that it actually works and that it starts to generate a profit also on relatively short notice. Once you've been able to prove that your business is profitable, it will be so much easier also to attract growth capital if that is what you need. If, on the other hand, you have a service which is highly profitable in itself or a product which is highly profitable, you might even be able to pull it off to just run the company and grow it organically without external funding, which is something that I, of course, can recommend. But on the other hand, having knowledgeable shareholders on board can also help accelerate your business tremendously. So they say if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go a long way, go together. And I believe in the latter, actually, because we're in this for the long run.
Yeah. So you don't want to stop WakaWaka now. Now you know from the failure what you got to do next. You have to show first before you promise. But
exactly.
The problem that you're facing, you're making impact on certain lives. Do you have like an end goal?
Yes, there is an end goal. The end goal is that all people who are not connected to the electricity grid have a renewable source of light. Our mission is to provide renewable energy for all, not just a few or as many as we can. No, yeah, as many as we can, obviously. But the purpose is to provide renewable energy for all. And that is something that hopefully we will have accomplished together with the industry. At some point in time, hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years.
Oh, wow. So you're actually measuring this right now. You have to like show this every year. Like, I don't know many NGOs that are actually showing their impact.
No, we report our impact through impact reports, and actually we keep also an online it's almost real time map basically on our website. It's an impact map where we map all of our projects, all of our off-grid projects. You can find them there. So you can zoom in actually on village level. You can see how many WakaWakas are there. If you'd actually physically go there, you would be able to see households who are using a WakaWaka there. We will mention the partner that we teamed up with, and the number of lights, the number of carbon emissions saved, the number of dollars saved on energy expenses for the family, and the number of extra light hours for study and work that are generated as a result.
Wow. So these impact, yeah, like every part of impact that you make, you're now also measuring.
Yes, these are our impact metrics, correct. So, and we're using standards that are used by the World Bank as well.
Okay, so these standards you are given, maybe there's a resource where people can go to find out.
It's different for every, I think it's for every business is different. For our business, which is the off-grid solar lighting business, there's a brands association called the Global Off-Grid Lighting Association, also known as GOGLA. And they have come up with impact metrics that are used by the entire branch right now. So if you are active in a certain field and you want to measure impact, go and find whether these impact metrics are already there. Chances are that they are. But if they're not, team up also with other people in your branch to help design these universal impact metrics that can be adopted by the rest of your branch, so you can share your impact and also work towards a common goal together.
Wow. So maybe it's a good advice to first look at the SDGs, look at like what are the biggest problems, and if there are already metrics in place to start, and if not, you can start by designing these metrics with researchers or with associations that are having the same goals. You can.
But I think the most important thing, I think, when you start up a company is it has to be your passion. It has to be something that comes from deep within, that comes from your toes, basically, because you're gonna get up every single day, and you want to be motivated. And of course there'll be setbacks. That happens with every startup, more than you want to know. And if you're not driven from something deep down inside, it's almost impossible to pull it through.
Then you need an exit strategy, right?
Then you need an exit strategy, yeah. But if you start a company for a quick exit, then why are you doing it in the first place? So there's one reason why WakaWaka would sell the company to anybody, and that is if we would bump into a company that can generate impact faster than we can, that would be a potential takeover company. Because if we would continue to do what we're doing, we're going too slow. If someone else can do it faster with our brand, with our help maybe, then that would be a reason to team up.
Is it like Unilever buying the vegetarian butcher? Something like that?
Yes, exactly. It's exactly that.
A bigger channel, like they could leverage so much more impact than you could do by yourself. So that will be a good partner or a merger strategy for them to take over the business.
Absolutely. That's the right comparison.
So maybe Philips.
So maybe Philips. Well, if Philips would have a decent distribution channel in off-grid areas, then yes. But that is something that I'd love to discuss with Philips and see how far they're at.
Yeah, so this is an open call for everyone that wants to change the world with light, especially those in underdeveloped countries that are changing the world with lightning resource for everyone. To help Camille on his mission to give everyone access to renewable energy, to have a light source in the first place. But renewable energy is like a huge abundance quest that we all have, right? With electrical cars, with trying to get from fossil fuel to clean energy cars like Tesla is doing. Everyone is trying to work on this huge goal, and there's no one that can do the whole thing on its own.
Exactly. We all need each other.
Yes. So thank you very much for your time. This has been great advice for me as well. And I bet the listeners that will be finding us on different social media channels will love to hear from you as well. And is there any way that they can reach out to you with more questions that you want to provide them?
Yes, that's always possible. Do email us at info@waka-waka.com, info@waka-waka.com. And we try to answer everybody who emails us.
Do you need an investor at the moment or not?
There are still 2 seats available. So if there are angels out there who understand our mission and are interested to join our band of angels, then they can definitely reach out as well. But there's only two seats left.
Is it equity based?
Yes, that's equity based.
Okay, so how many percentage can they buy?
7.5.
7.5. So 15% in total, or 7.5 in total?
This is 15 total, exactly. Why are you interested in me?
Well, I'm always curious to see if I can support more social enterprises. I like to diverge in different companies.
Yeah.
But it's also good to know for philanthropists that have the same mindset as I have, to know about the opportunities.
Yeah, well, in that aspect, it's maybe good to know that our shareholders all have an equal share. Hence the 7.5%. It's not more, it's not less. So that's fixed. So everybody has basically a same voice on the shareholder table. So there's not just one person who decides it all. That's not possible. So we do this together.
That's great to know. I guess that's the core of social enterprise, that you don't have to give away your purpose for money, and that everyone who is in there with their hearts as well.
Exactly. Great words, Nick.
Thank you very much, and have a great Christmas and holidays over there. In the north of the Netherlands, as I see. It's peaceful there, all right?
It is.
I hope to see you in real life anywhere soon, so we can drink and share on the impact that we are both making. It's
definitely.
Yeah, it's really good to have more people around that are doing such an amazing work, and you are making so much impact that I'm very glad to be able to talk to you about this.
And the gratitude is all mine, Nick. Thank you so much for your time. Once again, thank you for being the first on your vlog series, and I really hope a lot of people are going to see this, and we look forward to answering any questions people still may have. Thank you so much.
And have a great one.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye, Nick.